Be very careful of where you eat and how you eat outside, because most of the fancy restaurant we admire from outside are not what we think of them. Welcome to Talking African Tales, home OD beautiful African stories. Blessing was desperately pressed after finishing her meal. She urgently needed to use the restroom, so she asked the waitress for directions. However, when she got there, it was already occupied. Unable to hold it any longer, Blessing noticed a swinging door leading to the kitchen. She peeped through and couldn't make sense of what she saw, so she pushed through the door. What she witnessed shocked her to the core and made her want to vomit. Everything was filthy and disgusting. Dirty dishes were piled high beside the cooking area. Raw meat sat out in the open, covered with dozens of flies. The women cooking had dirty hair, and their white aprons were stained with all sorts of things, looking like they hadn't been washed in months. The floor was covered in grime, and rats roamed freely everywhere. Then Blessing saw something that made her stomach turn. The owner of the restaurant, a heavyset woman in a stained dress, was cooking a large pot of soup. As Blessing watched in horror, the woman leaned over the pot and began washing her hair directly into it, letting the dainty water drip into the food. Then she reached for a container of what looked like oil but was actually goat blood, pouring it into the same pot. Blessing felt nauseated. She covered her nose and mouth, holding her stomach as she rushed back into the restaurant. She sat down, pretending nothing had happened, but her mind was racing. As soon as she left the restaurant, she ran outside and vomited everything she had eaten. Growing up, Blessing grew up accustomed to buying food from different restaurants because she never learned to cook. Her mother, Mrs. Okafor, was a single parent raising 2 children alone. Blessing was the second child and only daughter, while her older brother Chidi was the firstborn. Mrs. Okafor worked tirelessly as a businesswoman. Her shop was located in the heart of the market, and she was always busy from dawn to dusk. She left home very early each morning to avoid traffic and returned late at night when the children were already asleep. The children received little attention. Every morning, their mother gave them money to buy food at school. In the afternoon, they bought lunch from a nearby food vendor. At night, they purchased dinner before their mother came home. Neither Blessing nor Chidi learned how to cook because their mother was never around to teach them. Despite being the older sibling, Chidi also didn't know his way around the kitchen. The siblings grew up preferring street food and fast food over homemade meals. This became their normal way of life. University life. After graduating from secondary school, Blessing gained admission to a university in another state. When she arrived, she quickly settled into her new environment. She was assigned a roommate named Funke, and they became close friends. Unlike Blessing, Funke rarely bought food from outside. She would go to the market, buy ingredients, and cook delicious meals herself. But Blessing didn't know how to cook, so she continued her habit of eating out. As soon as Blessing settled in, she started exploring the area for street food vendors and restaurants, searching for the cheapest meals with good taste. Every single day, she ate at a different restaurant to test their food. Funke noticed that Blessing never bought pots or plates for cooking. One day, she tried to advise her, "Blessing, don't you know it's safer and cheaper to buy things from the market and cook yourself? Why do you always waste money on outside food?" But Blessing got offended. "Is it your money? Have I ever asked you for money? How is my life choice your business?" Funke apologized and dropped the subject, but Blessing's habits didn't change. Meeting Tunde. One afternoon, as Blessing was returning from class, a handsome young man approached her. "Hello, my name is Tunde," he said with a charming smile. He asked to speak with her privately and told her he liked her. They exchanged numbers and began talking regularly. Tunde was a businessman with several ventures around the city. He often took Blessing to fancy, expensive restaurants, and she quickly fell in love with him. One day, Tunde decided to visit Blessing at her place. She welcomed him warmly and offered him a soft drink. As they talked, Tunde's stomach began to grumble. "I'm really hungry," he said. "Could you cook something for me? I'd love to taste your food." He offered to take her to the market to buy ingredients, but Blessing froze. "Why don't we just order from one of those fancy restaurants instead?" she suggested nervously. Tunde shook his head. "No, I want to taste your cooking." When Blessing realized he was serious, she had no choice but to confess. "I'm sorry, Tunde. But I can't cook. Tunde was shocked. Blessing was beautiful and seemed to have everything together. He found it strange that she couldn't cook such a basic skill. Disappointed, he stood up abruptly and left her apartment without another word. When Funke came home later, she found Blessing lying on the bed looking sad. "What's wrong?" Funke asked with concern. But Blessing was too ashamed to tell the truth. "I lost some money," she lied. She couldn't bear the thought of Funke saying "I told you so." The betrayal. Weeks passed, and Blessing tried to move on from Tunde. Then one afternoon, something caught her attention. She noticed Funke getting dressed up more often and coming home late with a suspicious smile on her face. One evening, Blessing returned home earlier than usual. As she approached their apartment, she heard laughter coming from inside, Funke's laughter, along with a male voice that sounded eerily familiar. Her heart pounding, Blessing quietly opened the door and walked toward Funke's room. The door was slightly ajar. When she peeked inside, her world shattered. There, in bed together, were Funke and Tunde. Blessing stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. They were so caught up in each other that they didn't even notice her. She backed away silently and left the apartment. The betrayal cut deep. Her roommate, her friend who cooked for her and laughed with her, was now with the man who had dumped her. And the worst part, Funke still pretended everything was normal, cooking meals and chatting with Blessing as if nothing had happened. Heartbroken and angry, Blessing made a decision. She wouldn't let them see her broken. She went online and started watching cooking tutorials. She bought basic cooking utensils and ingredients from a market. One evening, after days of practice, Blessing prepared a delicious jollof rice with chicken and fried plantains. The aroma filled the apartment. She packed it beautifully in a container, planning to surprise Tunde and win him back. But when she arrived at his place and saw his car parked outside with Funke's bag visible through the window, reality hit her again. She stood there holding her meal, feeling foolish. She turned around and went back home. That night, Blessing cried until she had no tears left. She threw herself into learning how to cook, not for any man, but for herself. She watched videos, practiced recipes, and slowly became confident in the kitchen. A few days later, while at a campus cafe, a well-dressed man approached her. "Excuse me, you dropped this," he said, handing her a book. His name was Kola, but everyone called him Kola. He was a successful businessman visiting the university for a seminar. Unlike Tunde, Kola was genuinely kind and mature. They exchanged numbers, and he began courting her properly. When Kola eventually visited her apartment, Blessing shocked herself by offering to cook for him. She prepared a simple meal of rice and stew, and though her hands trembled with nervousness, the food turned out delicious. "This is wonderful," Kola said with a genuine smile. "You're talented." Blessing smiled back, finally feeling proud of herself. During this time, Blessing noticed a new fancy restaurant that had opened near campus. It was always packed with customers, and the exterior design looked luxurious. The prices were surprisingly cheap for such an upscale-looking place. This must be why they are always full, Blessing thought as she walked in for the first time. The interior was beautiful and classy. She ordered a meal, and it tasted delicious. From that day on, Blessing became a regular customer. The waiters soon knew her preferences and expected her daily visits. Sometimes when she was too busy with classes, she called to have food delivered to her hostel. Despite learning to cook, old habits were hard to break completely. However, something strange happened. Less than a month after she started eating there regularly, Blessing became seriously ill. She had severe stomach cramps and fever. At the hospital, the doctor told her she had a dangerous bacterial infection. This bacteria breeds only in very dirty environments, the doctor explained. You're lucky you came in when you did. This could have killed you within days. Make sure your food is prepared in clean conditions. Blessing thanked the doctor and went home to recover. She was more careful for a while, but eventually she went back to the same restaurant. She convinced herself it must have been a one-time mistake. Within 3 weeks, she was sick again, and then a third time. After the third illness, Blessing decided to investigate. The restaurant looked so clean and luxurious from the outside. How could it be making her sick? One weekend afternoon, She went to the restaurant and ordered her usual meal. This time, she ate slowly, carefully examining each spoonful of rice. When she finished, she pretended to need the restroom. The restroom was occupied, so Blessing wandered down the hall. She saw the swinging door to the kitchen and couldn't resist peeking inside. What she saw would haunt her forever. The clean kitchen was a nightmare. Dirty dishes were stacked everywhere. Raw meat sat exposed to flies. The floor was filthy with rats running freely. The women cooking had unwashed hair and stained aprons. Then Blessing witnessed the most horrifying scene. The restaurant owner, the same woman who greeted customers with a smile out front, was leaning over a large pot of soup. She began washing her long, dirty hair directly into the pot, letting the grimy water drip into the food that would be served to customers. When she finished, she reached for a container labeled oil, but filled with dark red goat blood, pouring it generously into the soup. Blessing's stomach churned violently. She ran back to her seat, grabbed her bag, and rushed outside. She vomited on the side of the building. As she stood there, shaking and disgusted, a terrible realization hit her. If this fancy, expensive-looking restaurant was this filthy, how many other restaurants she'd eaten at over the years were the same? Even the ones she considered trustworthy? She thought about all the different restaurants she had visited, all the countless meals she had eaten, and wondered how many had been prepared in similar conditions. The transformation. When Blessing got home, she was ashamed. She wished she had listened to Funke's advice in the beginning, before the betrayal, when Funke actually seemed to care about her well-being. That evening, Blessing cleaned out her small kitchen space thoroughly. She bought more cooking utensils and fresh ingredients from the market. She spent hours watching cooking videos and practicing. From that day forward, Blessing stopped eating out almost entirely. She cooked her own meals and packed lunch for school. Her friends were surprised to see her bringing homemade food to campus. "Blessing, when did you learn to cook?" they asked. "Recently," she'd say with a smile. "And I should have learned a long time ago." Her meals weren't as fancy-looking as restaurant food, but they tasted delicious, and more importantly, she knew exactly how they were prepared, with proper hygiene and care. As for Tunde and Funke, Blessing eventually moved to a different apartment. She heard later that their relationship didn't last long. But by then, she didn't care anymore. She had Kola, who appreciated her for who she was and supported her growth. She had also learned an important lesson. Not everyone or everything is as clean as they appear. Sometimes the most beautiful exteriors hide the ugliest secrets. Blessing became an advocate for food safety among her friends, always reminding them to be careful about where they ate. And whenever she felt tempted to order from a restaurant just because she was tired, she remembered that kitchen, the dainty hair washing into the soup, the goat blood, the rats, and she went straight to her own clean kitchen instead. Not everyone or everything is as clean as they appear. Make an effort to know where your food comes from and how it's prepared. When you truly care about someone, you should have their best interests at heart, even when the truth is difficult to hear. Sometimes life's hardest lessons teach us the most valuable skills. Don't wait for a crisis to learn what you should have learned earlier. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy this story, please click on your subscribe button and subscribe.